tomato, broccoli leaf and pomegranate salad. It's probably the oddest side dish I have ever made for myself. Hey Helicopter, I'm excited because today is the start of the first food challenge I'm going to do on this channel, so that's new for me. And I've taken inspiration from a channel I love, Atomic Shrimp, who's done budget food challenges for years now. And the focus is not on like how to actually live cheaply, these are cooking challenges. These are what can you do if you're in these weird little constraints with ingredients you wouldn't normally choose, what food can you cook? So this is going to stretch some of my skills here. And this is going to be a little bit different from what Atomic Shrimp does, if nothing else, because I'm not in the UK, so I can't go to all those British shops I'm used to. We are going to see today what can I do if I buy the cheapest items in ICA. The other differences though are I'm vegetarian, so I've got to do this my way. There's some different types of products I'm going to have in here. The thing that is the same as Atomic Shrimp's videos is it's not just I'm going to buy the one cheapest item. I'm going to have categories and I'm going to find the cheapest thing in the whole shop for the categories that I've picked. Then I'll bring home whatever it is I end up with and we'll see what I end up cooking for the day. So the categories are: 1, fruit, because I eat a piece of fruit every day, I like to. I'm going to buy 1 leafy green, so that is the kind of brassica family and adjacent things. That could be your cabbages, your sprouts, your kales, your spinaches. Then 1 general vegetable, I'm not going to have any repeats here obviously. 1 pulse, so that could be beans or lentils, either dried or tinned. 1 general tin, again, no repeats here. 1 jar, I think that's going to be a real wild card category, and obviously I do mean a jar of food, not a jar of food polish or cat food or something, but that one's quite unpredictable. I'm going to buy 1 dairy product, so that could be anything from butter, milk, yogurt, cheese, and I'm going to get a meat substitute. I'm going to try and make sure I'm getting like a reasonable amount of protein for the day. And then finally, another slight wild card here is 1 baked good. I'm hoping I'll get something savoury, but if I end up with a mini donut, I can't be too upset really. Then some general guidelines, because I want to be like a bit systematic about this and I need to keep myself, you know, happy, healthy, functional for the day. My fruit and veg. I can get loose stuff, but it needs to be a minimum of a handful, and I will, you know, put it in my hand and show you what that looks like. If it comes in a package, fine. For everything else though, it's just the cheapest single container. I'm not going to do multiply items, and I'm not going to do price by weight or anything like that. It's just the cheapest single thing I can get. I will let myself get reduced items. Again, I think that just adds the potential variety. I could get some weird stuff here. I'm not going to let myself do unportioned deli counter products, so I'm not going to go to the deli counter and just get the thinnest sliver of cheese known to mankind. I do need to eat 3 different meals, and I do want to have a snack because I usually have a snack. I am going to let myself have a few extra things that I haven't bought. So first thing is unlimited salt, pepper and cups of tea, because I'm used to having caffeine. And happy Sophie, productive Sophie, makes better videos for you. I will let myself use 3 different flavourings, a teaspoon of each, so that could be herbs, could be spices, whatever I've got in my cupboards to keep this interesting and to make the cooking a bit more interesting. And I will let myself use 1 tablespoon of cooking fat, because there's no way I'm going to go and buy a whole new bottle of oil. So I am taking care that I've planned my meals for the week around having this day where I'm doing this challenge, and I'm not going to let things go to waste. I am going to try and do this in a kind of sensible, balanced way. So it's Sunday, we're going to go out to our local ICA. I am taking Swedish sample with me to just help with the filming, and we're going to go shopping today. Going to get organised, bring home what I get, have overnight to think, and then tomorrow, Monday, will be the day I do all my cooking and I eat my meals, and I'll let you know how I get on. first category was a fruit, and it ended up being those 2 passion fruit for 5 sec. I don't really know what I'll do with them, so I thought that might be fun. And I also don't know how to pick out passion fruit, so we just hoped that wrinkly was good. Then we had my dark leafy green, and it ended up being this broccoli, 250 grams of it, a good amount for one person for one day. Then for my ordinary vegetable, the lowest kilo price for loose things was potatoes. So I think I'm cursed by my small hands here, because I ended up with 200 grams of potatoes, not a lot, but it was less than 4 sec. Then we had my pulses, and this was quite fun that it worked out this way. It was the vitebönor I tomatsås, so basically baked beans, Swedish style. And what's in it? Well, vitebönor thankfully is the first ingredient on the list, but the vitebönor is 45%, so maybe it'll be a bit more saucy than I'd like. Then we had my tin, which, continuing the theme of ICA Basic, I could have had crushed tomatoes. I went with whole tomatoes because I can crush them up if I want to, but now we're at true tomatoey products. Then my jar, there was a campaign price on, so I ended up with the taco sauce. So our third tomatoey product, I went with the medium one. I want a bit of flavour, and that's got mostly tomatoes, but then also onion and green pepper and lots of flavourings with chilli powder and cayenne and coriander and some jalapeno. Tomato based product number 3. Then we had our baked good. Now I felt a bit more lucky on this one. I had a variety of different rolls and things all the same price, including this mini single serve baguette type thing for what, 8 sec? We put it in a plastic bag because obviously I shopped the day before I did the challenge so that I can have breakfast at a good time tomorrow morning. Then my fake meat product. I've never had this before, don't really know what it is. Perssons vegoskivor, vegetarian like sliced meat product, and the biggest ingredient on that one is äggvita, so I think that's egg whites, but that's some protein, you know, that's something. And then finally for my dairy, I was really hoping to get some yogurt or some cheese or something that was reduced down to a good price, but no, we were out of luck today. So we've ended up with just some good old milk. It is the whole milk, so it's a higher fat content. I was thinking maybe that'll give me a bit more calories, and that's that. So I've got a few ideas. I do think I should just check and see and work out roughly what's the calorie content of all these things, because lots of it is not so calorie dense, and I just want to make sure I'm going to get through the day okay. But there it is. I'll get to planning and thinking and calculating, and I will see you all tomorrow when I start my cooking and my eating. Here's what I spent in a bit more detail then. So my leafy green, my broccoli, that was a 250 gram pack, that was 16 sec. That's like a fine price, but you can do much better if you go frozen and get like a whole kilo. My weird fruit option with the passion fruit on offer for 5 sec, that's such a bargain. Those potatoes, my tiny little 200 gram handful, were 3.39 sec. Baked beans, that was 8, basically 9 sec. That's actually a fair price, I'd say. The whole tomatoes was basically 11 sec. For me, that's like quite expensive. If I was getting that in the UK, I'd be thinking, yeah, that's like one of the fancier tins. No, that's the ICA Basic, but hey, nothing ridiculous, just UK grocery prices are really cheap. The taco sauce was 10 sec for that jar. My little baguette was basically 8 sec. The veggie slices, they were on offer at 18 sec, and I guess that makes sense. Processed, like fake meat replacement type things are definitely an expensive category. And then finally my tiny little cute little 300 milliliter bottle of milk was 8 sec. And probably a lot worse value than buying a big carton, but useful for purposes of today and useful for me who doesn't really use a lot of milk. Then the grand total, drumroll please, was 88.14 sec, or 663. So actually that's quite an expensive day's worth of food. We'll see how it turns out. Maybe it'll turn out to be worth it. I have my doubts, but this is just an interesting set of parameters to create myself a challenge. I am going to chill for the rest of my Sunday. I'm going to have a think about things I could maybe make to spread this weird collection of ingredients over 3 different meals and a snack. And then tomorrow I'll be up bright and early setting up my cameras to film myself making my breakfast. Our ingredients are some of the milk, some of the bread, and passion fruit. The plan is to do a warm milk with bread chunks soaked in and some fruit on top. Now, I don't work with passion fruit normally, this is new to me, so we need to work out, is it going to be more sour, more sweet? And I might need to use one of my teaspoons of seasoning to add, I don't know, a spice, some sugar, and just balance out the flavour of these with my milky bread concoction. So we're just going to get some gentle heat going. And we're going to try maybe half of my milk. Let's go a little bit more than half. I'm going to leave that to warm up gently, and then I'll decide how much of my bread to add in to soak. Okay, so I'm going to start with about 1/3 of that bread. Now, I'll be honest, I never really cook with real milk. We're an Oatly household here, but I'm not sure how well this takes the heat or how long it needs or what the consistency will be like. I'm not honestly sure if I like warm milk. I did have some other ideas for this milk. I know you can make your own kind of cheese coat stuff, paneer style or cottage cheese style, but I'm not sure I've got enough for that really. 300 millilitres isn't going to get you an awful lot of cheese, and I'm not sure it's worth the bother. I think I'm going to call that there. Let's get this in a bowl, let's add this bread and this fruit. I want to try and get every drop of this. I don't have much food to spare today, so bear with me while I let it drip. Okay, that'll do it, I reckon. Not much left there. Then we're going to take our bread and just tear some nice little bits of that in to soak in the milk. Ooh, it is not too stale, thankfully. Our plastic bag did its job. That's more bread than I thought it would be, to be honest. That looks like a nice amount when it's soaking in the milk there. Now, let's get our passion fruit. The skin of that was a bit tougher to cut through than I thought. And I'm just going to taste a little bit before I put it in this, because, like I said, I don't know how tart this is or how sweet this is. Those seeds have some crunch. And that's quite a nice balance, actually. I like that. Sort of slimy, sticky thing sticking inside their shell a bit. You don't get an awful lot of this inside the skin. Let's do that. There we go. It's 1/2. I reckon this might quite nicely cut through the fatty creaminess of that milk. Do I need a seasoning? And if so, what? Let's just taste a little bit of that. A little teaspoon of sugar is my plan. That's my 5 milliliter measure. I think that's a pretty level teaspoon. Not massive, but it should help. Ooh. Yeah, actually, once you sprinkle that on, that seems like more than it first appeared. Okay, so sugary bread milk passion fruit concoction, time to eat properly. I was right, the sugar really helped that. It's gone a bit cold by the time I've messed around with my cameras, but there's a little heat left. And the passion fruit's not too tangy, it is actually seeming quite sweet now with the sugar, and the milk doesn't feel too heavy, too creamy. I'm pleased with that. Right, I'm going to put the cameras off and enjoy the rest of my breakfast in peace. So it's just coming up to 11 o'clock and it's time for my snack. I have an idea. It's not something I've done before, but we'll see how it works. So my potential main ingredient is these beans, and let's see what I can do. I'm hoping to get a kind of bean dip, then to do a couple of thin little slices of fried bread to go in that, and we'll see what we can come up with. I'll probably use some taco sauce for flavouring and texture, and there is a splash of milk if I need it, but don't know, not so sure about that one. So we need a bowl and we need a fork to mash with, and let's get these open. Now then, I don't want too much of that sauce because I think that might be nicer and more useful later. So actually, maybe I'll get a spoon and just try and get some beans without too much the liquid. Maybe something like that. Okay, and then the rest of these can go in a little pot so that they're sealed. Yes, I think that'll be a good amount left for my dinner later. I'm gonna lick the spoon. Not a bad sauce. Going to cool that there. I think those beans are about as thick and mashed as I'm going to get them by hand. Then, sadly, taco sauce is quite fine and I reckon this will make it wetter, but At least it'll be some flavour variety if I can ever open this jar. And attempt number 3. Yes! Oh, we got there. We're in. Right. Not sure how much of this I want. Just do a little shake. Ooh. And let's have a taste while I'm at it. Swedish medium is hardly spicy at all. Mix, mix, mix. Oh, that's a bit of a prettier colour now. And let's have a little taste of this. There's quite a bit of sweetness from that bean sauce still. I'll add a splash more of the salsa. And taste again. I might add a little bit more salt. So just a little dash. And a little dash of pepper. I think that'll do it. That no longer has the full-on like sweet bean juice taste, somewhat like a dip. Right, let's get these out of the way. I don't know why I thought that milk would be useful. Then my plan is to get a few nice thin rounds of this, fry them up in part of my daily oil dose and dip. So I allowed myself 1 tablespoon of oil today. 1 tablespoon, 3 teaspoons. Let's see if 1 teaspoon is going to be enough. I think we'll go with olive oil for this one, get a bit more flavour. Here is my carefully measured teaspoon of oil. Smallest amount I think I've ever tried to fry in. Yeah, it's not much, is it? I'm going to let that drip out. Then my tiny little bread rounds. They're going to be more texture than anything else. Let's get a bit of oil on there. Bit of oil. Bit of oil. Bit of oil. And I'm leaving a bit of oil in a pool to try and get to the other side. This is much more effort than I'd normally put into a snack. Normally I'm a just grab an apple and go sort of person, not mash something, fry something else, take a quarter of an hour. It's not my normal style of snack. Then I'm impatient, so I'm going to peek. Oh, it's good and oily, but it's not got any colour on it yet. Longer needed. Right, let's check again. Oh well. Let's oil up the second side. Can always flip it back after. Oil up the second side. Nearly, nearly, nearly. Right, I'm going to call that there. That will do. So here we have it, my very effortful snack of bean dip and toast rounds. Let's get in there. Got a decent little bit of crunch on that bread. That's well seasoned. That's not the most exciting bean dip in the world, but it'll do. I will say the ratio of dip to bread is a bit off, but worst case is I end up eating some with a fork. Right, let me dig in and enjoy this off camera now. Okay, so it's lunchtime and I'm going to go for a sort of salad and sandwich style combo. And you may well be asking, salad? What salad? Well, I'm going to do my best here. Our salad is going to have some broccoli bits and some tomato. And it won't quite be a conventional salad, but we work with what we've got today. So of my broccoli, we've got some leaves that don't look the prettiest, but let's see what that's like. I just sample a little piece. Is that an edible salad leaf? Quite tough. Kind of kale vibes. How about these stalks then? Well, that's a good crunch at least. It is also on the bitter side of things. Maybe if I chop this up nice and fine and maybe bruise it a bit, maybe that'll feel a bit more like it. So just gonna bruise those leaves a bit. And then we're gonna go quite fine like so. Try and bruise those stems a bit as well, get them a little bit more tender. And then let's see how many tomatoes are in a can. Oh, okay. So first impression is not as whole as I thought it would be. Ah, okay. So it's only just below the surface there. This feels like one whole chunky tomato. And then let's have some sliced tomato. Well, we've got an awful lot of juice leaking off there, but those are some chunks of not too mushy tomato. Let's just chop them a bit finer. Well, I wonder, can you put passion fruit in a salad? And then the broccoli leaves. Hopefully the sweet tomato will counteract some of that bitterness. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything about dressing. I do still have a flavouring to use, to be fair. I'm going to go with some, a little bit more salt than I meant to. Oops. Go with some pepper. Well, I'm not sure how convincing that is as a salad, but it's a start. Then, it's going to be a rather small sandwich because that's all bread I've got left. Now, I don't have any butter, but I am going to layer up a load of this sandwich meat. Yeah, look at that. 2 slices and already that's looking like quite a full sandwich. 3 slices. 4 slices. How much further can I go? I reckon 5 slices. My other idea was to get a bit of green in there, was to do some fried rounds, not that one maybe, but to do some fried rounds of broccoli stalk. There we go, that's a good amount of my stalk sliced up. Pop the rest of that back out of the way. Any particularly off-colour looking bits I'll just trim. Back at my hob now, and I think we're going to go olive oil again. My second precious teaspoon of oil for the day. 1 more of these allowed within the rules. Let's get that heating up. Oh, now I reckon we're there, so let's get those all in. Oh, that one's good. Yes, that'll do it. Right, heat off. So we've got the sandwich so far. We've got my broccoli bits to just try and squeeze in the top there. Excuse the beeping, my hob gets annoyed easily. Added moisture incoming. You can't have a completely dry sandwich. Tomato, broccoli leaf and pomegranate salad is probably the oddest side dish I have ever made for myself. Then a quick taste of this bizarre concoction for flavour. Yep, truly bizarre. Not quite unpleasant, but not far off. Do I want to use my next teaspoon of flavouring here? Yes, I think I need to do something about this. I think, to make it feel a little more salady, we might go with some acid. So flavouring number 2, lemon juice, to dress my strange little salad. Then, the all-important taste test on this sandwich. Can I manage not to drop the fillings? That's alright, you know. Would have loved some butter, but the salsa's stopping it being too dry. The broccoli's nice and tasty. This is plain, but it's not offensive. And you know what, I might just try a bit of this ham stuff, well, veg slice stuff by itself, because I've never had it before. Unremarkable, has the same vibes as those kind of ham sandwich meat type products, and it'll do the job. The dreaded salad. Oh, I have regrets about this one. I think I should have kept that a bit more simple. The texture is weird. It is salty and acidic, and there is an alright sort of flavour to it, and you don't get too much bitterness from that broccoli, just a little bit, but oh, that is a weird old texture, that. Camera off while I try to enjoy my lunch, but not sure that's going to get finished, to be honest. Okay, so post-lunch update. The salad was a write-off. I fished out as many chunks of tomato as I could manage, but I'm not finishing that. The texture's too weird. I am going to nibble on a few more veggie slices, with a few more saved for dinner, and I am tolerably full and tolerably satisfied, just a bit weirded out. I have some regrets here. Okay, so it's just after 5 o'clock and I'm already going to start prepping dinner because, I'll be honest, I am now quite hungry. So what's left is my potatoes, most of the broccoli, a couple of little bits of the slices, most of that tin of tomatoes, a good chunk of that tin of beans, plus the best part of a jar of taco sauce. There is also a stray splash of milk, which, if I don't cook with, to be honest, I will just drink. The plan is obviously a stew. I can also use a teaspoon of oil, I can also use a teaspoon of seasoning, and I think I'm going to start by washing these, slicing them, and then frying them in the bottom of my pot. Oh, we're in luck. They are beautiful. We're good to go. My last teaspoon of oil. There we go. And let's get that heating up to fry off these potatoes. Oh, how I long for an onion. We're definitely getting some nice fond on the bottom of this pot, so that should add to the flavour. The oil is away, back in the cupboard to remove me from temptation. I'll check back in with you in a second when these are a bit more done. Well, I think I need to give up on frying these before it all sticks and burns. Get some juice in there. There's nothing to stop me adding some water if I want to, so I reckon I might use that. But first, let's just break up these plum tomatoes. Here we go. While that comes up to a simmer, I'm going to get my broccoli ready to go. I'm just getting this broccoli chopped up into some nice little florets. This is an awful lot of broccoli for one meal, but hopefully I won't get sick of it. And then I'm going to cut off the tougher bits of this stalk, and I will put that in probably before the florets because it'll take a little bit longer to cook. Yeah, there we go. That's quite a nice soft stalk actually. The advantages of a small bit of broccoli, so let's just chomp that up. My tomatoes are simmering nicely now. I'll take the heat down a little bit because I do want this to go nice and slow. I'm going to try and get some of the bean sauce in there, and I'm hoping that by cooking the bean sauce in with these ordinary tomatoes, well, it won't end up tasting so much like a baked beans. And happily, I reckon there's more real tomato in there than there is baked bean sauce. We'll leave that to thicken up and cook for a bit, and then we'll add the broccoli a bit later on. Two ideas next. One is a bit of that taco sauce, and then I think I'm going to start cooking the broccoli in there. So, taco sauce, maybe 2/3 of the jar gone. Well, that's darkened up the colour a bit. The broccoli, let's go with these chunky bits first, and then let's see how this looks as I add it. How much broccoli is too much broccoli? Oh, I haven't even added all the broccoli and it already feels like more broccoli than stew. I splash more water and then put a lid on it so that uncovered broccoli can at least steam a bit. So, splash that in there, pop that on, and again, we'll check back in 5 or 10 minutes. Broccoli has had time to soften up. Let's give this a mix. We're ready for the final significant ingredient, which is the rest of my lovely baked beans. That is going to add to the baked beaniness of this once more, but I have a plan because I am going to use the last teaspoon of my flavouring. I just need to decide what. I think I will stick to the original plan and go with some dried oregano because that always goes nicely. So for the final time today, my trusty teaspoon. It's a bit hard to measure because some of it goes into the pan while I try and fill up the spoon. A slightly heaped teaspoon. Let's try and get that all out of the spoon. I think we're about done. I decided against making it creamy in the end. I didn't think that would go so well with our taco sauce vibes, but that just means I get a glass of milk with my meal. So here we are then. Bang on 6 o'clock, my final meal of the day. I remembered at the last minute that I had those veggie slices, 2 of them left over lunch, so I just chopped and scattered them over the top. Not the most appetising necessarily, but food is food at this point. And I got my glass of milk. Probably the first time I've drunk a glass of milk since I was a small child. Oh, there's still a bit of crunch of the broccoli, I do like that. The potatoes are melt in your mouth soft. And the slices are plain enough that honestly I don't taste them over my saucy concoction. Yeah, that's alright. Not particularly refined food. It does still taste a bit baked beansy, but inoffensive. It's hot and it'll be good to get some food in me. So better than lunch, I'd say, at least. End of the day then, and you've seen how I've got on. It hasn't been my ideal food day, but if you're wondering, can you survive on just the cheapest stuff in ICA? The answer is a comfortable yes. While my calories were a bit low, while I was like quite hungry in the middle of the afternoon, my dinner was good and filling and I've been fine. I should confess though, I have had some additional snacks that were not from ICA and were not bought on any particular budget rules. My sample came home from work with a couple of treats and I drowned in because I wanted to. Then my meals, I am going to rate them quickly. Breakfast, that bread and milk, I think that was one of my favourites because the challenge pushed me to do something I wouldn't have normally done, and it was quite nice and I'd consider repeating it. I'd say maybe a 6 out of 10. Then similarly, the bean dip felt like a decent success in that I got creative, I made something I wouldn't normally have made and it was quite satisfying. However, the flavours in that bean dip, that's not how I would season it by default at all. I wouldn't want to go with a baked bean flavoured base. The ratio of bread to dip was way off and I'd have wanted more oil so I could fry that bread a bit better, although it was good and crispy. So my snack, I'd say maybe that's a 5 out of 10. It's also way more effort than I want to go to for my average snack. Lunch, I think I'd be doing it a disservice if I rated it all as one. So the sandwich, again, I'd say that's maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10. It was fine. I got a little bit creative in there with the fried broccoli slices. It absolutely needed butter, and I can't say the veg slices are my favourite thing, but they were functional. However, that salad, that mess in that little glass, is possibly the worst thing I've ever made for myself. I put on a bit of a brave face. I think I downplayed it earlier, but it was just awful. Finally, dinner. Dinner was just a bit boring. It was a very obvious thing to cook. It was cooked fine. It was seasoned fine, but unimaginative and kind of uninspiring. It was functional, it filled me up, it used up my ingredients. 4 out of 10, let's say. Plenty of room for improvement there. If nothing else, again, the ratios of the ingredients should be massively changed, and an onion, possibly some celery, possibly some garlic would do wonders for it. I'm now looking forward to a day where I don't have multiple meals tasting of taco sauce and baked beans, and I will not be buying those again in a rush. But this has been fun, right? So I'm certainly planning to do some more food challenges. I've enjoyed this process. So I might do some other supermarkets. I'm for sure going to do Colt because they're near me. I'd like to do Lidl because I like Lidl. Probably I'll find a Woolies at some point. There must be other supermarkets I'm forgetting. But I'd also like to do some just classic budget cap challenges. But I need to figure out kind of what's a reasonable level to set it at. So if you've got a suggestion for what's a like low but just about achievable sort of price in sec for me to try and live off for a day, or maybe for a weekend, just for one person, I'd love to hear your suggestions on that if you're Swedish and you know food prices better than me. And obviously there'll be more content coming about just my general life in Sweden. What's it like for a newly arrived person adapting to the country, getting themselves sorted out and trying to build a new life. So do subscribe, do check out the other videos I've already got up, and there'll be a new one coming next Saturday. Thank you for watching, folks.